Hello, everyone. This is TribeFan879 here. Uh, yes, I am starting my Rockies replay. I know it's been a while since I've done a video or any updates on this. However, it's taken me a while to get started. We will now call this episode 1 of Rockies Week in Baseball. Did not start very well on opening day for the Rockies. Opening day matchup was John Gray versus Patrick Corbin. Top of the first started off very well. Charlie Blackmon leadoff single, DJ LeMahieu single to put runners on first and second. And then Nolan Arenado with an RBI double scores both Blackmon and LeMahieu, and that made it 2-0 Rockies. The Diamondbacks would come back with a vengeance in the bottom half of the first. David Peralta leadoff single, and then A.J. Pollock takes Gray over the fence, and that's 2-0 for 2-1 or 2-2 for the score. Paul Goldschmidt followed with a single, and Jake Lamb with a 2-run homer that put the Diamondbacks ahead 4-2. They would go ahead 5-2 when Pollock hits his second home run of the day, a solo home run with 2 outs in the bottom half of the second. And that makes it 5-2 Diamondbacks. They would extend the lead to 6-2 when in the bottom of the fifth, Ketel Marte with a solo home run, and that's the knockout punch for John Gray. He would be pulled after that. And it was not much better. Scott Oberg in the sixth got the first 2 out. And then Jake Lamb with a single, and then Ketel Marte with a second home run of the day. That made it 8-2, and that's your final. Gray goes 4 1/3 in the loss. Corbin goes 5 for the win. And that's all for that game. Here's game 2, much better for the Rockies. This is Tyler Anderson against Robbie Ray, and this was pretty much all Rockies. Top of the first, after DJ LeMahieu reaches on a fielder's choice, Nolan Arenado singles LeMahieu to third and scores on a wild pitch. That makes it 1-0. Top of the third, the Rockies would use the long ball. Trevor Story with 1 out hits a solo home run, and then with 2 outs, Ian Desmond with a solo home run. That makes it 3-0. And then finally, the knockout punch for the Robbie Ray was given when Nolan Arenado leads off the 5th inning with a home run. That made it 4-0, and that was it. And then Fernando Salas was not much relief after that. Singles by Story, Gonzalez, and Desmond load the bases. And then Gerardo Parra with a 2-run single. That made it 6-0, and then Chris Iannetta with a single. That made it 7-0. And Iannetta's single was off of McFarland. Chris McFarland, I believe is his name. And then the Rockies would add solo runs in the 6th and the 7th. Desmond with a RBI single after a Carlos Gonzalez double. And then Charlie Blackmon led off the top, or with 2 outs in the top half of the 7th. Off of Chafin. That made it 10-0. The Diamondbacks would score in the bottom half of the 8th. Adam Ottavino in his second inning of work. 1 out double by Nick Ahmed. He scores on a Jake Lamb single. That made it 10-1, and that's your final. Anderson pitched 6 innings to get the win. And Ray goes 4 innings in the loss. All right, now we go to the final game of the series. This is German Marquez against Zach Greinke. And the scoring starts in the top half of the second when, with 2 outs, Trevor Story takes Greinke deep and over the wall, and that makes it 1-0. And then the wild and woolly scoring starts after that. Top half of the third, 1-out single by Charlie Blackmon, and then with 2 outs, Nolan Arenado goes deep, and that makes it 3-0. However, Marquez would start to falter after this. Also was not helped by his defense, especially in the bottom of the third when, with 1 out, David Peralta reaches on an error by Trevor Story, and then A.J. Pollock reaches on an Ian Desmond error. That puts runners on first and second. When you give extra outs, it's usually never a good thing. Well, Paul Goldschmidt walked. They got Lamb to strike out, but Daniel Descalso with a 2-run single. That makes it 3-2. And then Gerard Dyson grounds out to end the threat. All right, going to the top half of the fourth, and this is going to be the ID Jester portion that he loves. Gerardo Parra was hit by a pitch to lead off the inning, and then after consecutive strikeouts to Desmond and Story, Tony Wolters walks to put runners on first and second, and then German Marquez, the pitcher, on his card has a 1-4 home run chance, and I think I rolled a 4. So Marquez goes deep for the 3-run home run. Hashtag pitchers who rake. And that made it 6-2. However, Marquez would give some of those runs right back in the bottom half of the fourth. Bottom half of the fourth. Jeff Mathis with a 1-out triple. And then with 2 outs, David Peralta with a 2-run home run. That made it 6-4. And then in the bottom half of the fifth, Jake Lamb with a solo home run. That made it 6-5. And Marquez would get through the fifth and then be pulled. The next run remains scoreless until the bottom half of the eighth. This is with Brian Shaw pitching, and when Brian Shaw comes in, you better look out because it's usually going to be pretty ugly. Let's see, this is Devin Marrero with a leadoff single after he came in a double switch. He goes to second on a single by David Peralta. Fielder's choice moves him to second, or moves him to third, actually. And then a single by Paul Goldschmidt after Jake McGee came in, and that scores Marrero. That ties the game at 6. I mean, they got through that inning, and then we would go to extras. The Rockies did have a chance in the top of the 10th. After a single and 2 walks loaded the bases, Desmond struck out. And then with Scott Oberg pitching, leadoff triple by Paul Goldschmidt, and Jake Lamb singles to end the game. That makes the final 7-6, and the Rockies go 1-2 in a 3-game series. Oberg would get the loss, and Bradley would get the win after pitching the 10th. Okay, now we start the 4-game series against the Padres at Petco in San Diego. This was not a great series for the Rockies. This is Chad Bettis against Brian Mitchell. And the Rockies, they score a lot of runs in the first inning, probably because their top of the lineup's loaded. Charlie Blackmon leadoff single. 2 batters later, Nolan Arenado 2-run home run to put them up 2-0. They would add another run in the top half of the second when Trevor Story with a 1-out walk. He goes to third on a single by Chris Iannetta, and then Chad Bettis with an RBI single. That makes it 3-0. They would add to this with the they would add to the lead, make it 5-0 when after Arenado walked Carlos Gonzalez with a 2-run homer. That made it 5-0. However, the Padres would make their comeback in the fourth. Eric Hosmer with a one-out double, and then Jose Perella singles home Hosmer. That made it 5-1. The Padres would pull a lot closer. A.J. Ellis with a leadoff walk in the fifth. Matt Scherr doubled to put runners on second and third. And then Manuel Margot, 3-run homer, makes it 5-4. Bettis would get through the fifth after a double play ball by Carlos Asuaje. And that would be it for Bettis. He would get the no decision in this game, as you'll see later. Top half of the sixth, the Rockies add a couple more runs. Gerardo Parra singles. He stole second. They decided to give the intentional walk to Story, try to get to the bottom of the order. However, that failed when Chris Iannetta doubled home Parra, and then Ryan McMahon. Hold on, no. So Ryan McMahon walked, and then Charlie Blackmon with a fielder's choice, or with an RBI groundout, I should say, made it, let's see, 7-4. And then, that'd be it for the scoring for the Rockies. The Padres would add 2 runs in the bottom of the seventh. This is off of Brian Shaw again. No wonder he got left off the postseason roster. Error by Shaw. However, he got the next batter, didn't do a double play, but it would not go well after that. Eric Hosmer leadoff single. Perella walked to put runners on first and second. And then Carlos Asuaje with a single scores Hosmer. That made it 7-5. And then it'd be 7-6 when Chase Headley singles home Perella. And then Jake McGee had to be brought in to finish the threat there in the seventh. However, Chris Rusin came in the bottom of the eighth, and the Padres tied the game. Single by A.J. Ellis, walked to Hunter Renfroe, who was pinch hitting, and then Manny Margot again with an RBI single. That tied the game at 7. And then Wade Davis comes in the bottom of the ninth after a ground out by Freddie Galvis. A.J. Ellis with a ground out with a double, and then Carlos Villanueva walk-off 2-run homer, and the Padres win 9-7. Davis would get the loss, and let's see, Makita would get the win pitching the top of the ninth. All right, game 2 against the Padres was Kyle Freeland against Tyson Ross. Yeah. Actually, let me fix the score here. This game was a lot closer. It's not 4-1, it's 4-3. All right, so top of the first again. Rockies do damage. Charlie Blackmon leadoff single, walk to Nolan Arenado, and then Carlos Gonzalez with a 2-run double. Then, a 2-run double scores LeMahieu, and then on an error by Jose Perella, that scores Nolan Arenado. Okay, and then with Gonzalez on third, Gerardo Parra with a sac fly, that made it 3-0 Rockies. Sadly, that would be it for the scoring for them, as Tyson Ross went 7 innings in a great performance after a poor first inning. We go to the top half or bottom half of the third. Eric Hosmer with a triple, and then Hunter Renfroe with a RBI double. That makes it 3-1. And then in the bottom half of the seventh, back-to-back walks to Aswahe and Ellis. They bring in Scott Oberg, and maybe not such a good idea because Corey Spangenberg pinch hitting hits a pinch hit 3-run home run that made it 4-3, and then Brad Hand would finish off the ninth, which he hasn't been doing much lately for the Indians this year. That finishes the game. The Padres win 4-3. Tyson Ross would get the win because he did pitch the top of the seventh. Hand gets the save, and Oberg would get the loss. All right, we go to Game 6 of the season. This is John Gray against Clayton Richard. Once again, Rockies' first inning runs. Wish they could score the rest of the game. Nolan Arenado and Ian Desmond back-to-back home runs made it 2-0. However, in the bottom of the third, the Padres tie the game. Perella with the leadoff single, and then Aswahe with a 2-run homer. That ties the game at 2. And then in the bottom of the fifth, single by Clayton Richard. Single by Aswahe puts runners on first and third, and then a wild pitch scores Clayton Richard. And then Eric Hosmer with an RBI single. That makes it 4-2, and that's your final. Hand pitches the ninth again for the save. Richard went 6 innings for the win. Gray pitched 6 innings, didn't pitch terribly, I guess, and gets the loss. And finally, sorry, this is going to be a long video because these are high-scoring games. Final game was Tyler Anderson against Joey Lucchesi. Once again, first inning runs for the Rockies. Walk to Blackman, single by LeMahieu, puts runners on first and second, and then with 2 outs, Trevor Story with a 3-run homer. That makes it 3-0. However, the Padres cut into that lead in the bottom of the first. Margot with a leadoff walk, and then 2 batters later, Eric Hosmer with a 2-run homer. Makes it 3-2. The bottom half of the second, the Padres would go ahead to stay. Walked Aswahe, single by Austin Hedges. Puts runners on first and second after Lucchesi bunts to second and third. Manny Margot with an RBI groundout. That made it 3-3. And then an error by LeMahieu. I know that barely happens, but it happened. Error by LeMahieu, that made it 4-2. And then after a walk to Hosmer, Hunter Renfroe with a base hit, that makes it 5-3. The Rockies would tie the game in the top half of the fifth. Single by LeMahieu. Goes to third on an error by Villanueva. He threw the ball into the dugout. And then 2 batters later, Trevor Story with a 2-run... Story with a double. Actually, that scores LeMahieu. And then... Sorry, the error puts runners on second and third. Ian Desmond with an RBI groundout, that scored LeMahieu, and then Story with an RBI double, that scores Arenado. That made it 5-5. The Padres would go ahead for good in the bottom half of the fifth. Villanueva hit by a pitch. Freddie Galvis with a single, and then Austin Hedges with a 3-run homer. that ended Anderson's day with 1 out in the 5th. That made it 8-5. They would add another run in the bottom of the 8th. Eric Hosmer's solo home run, where the Rockies did not know how to get him out. That made it 9-5, and that's your final. Anderson gets the loss, and Lucchesi goes 5. Actually, Lucchesi will not get the win. Actually, Lucchesi will get the win because they went ahead. Lucchesi pitches 5 and gets the win. All right, guys, sorry this is a long video, but there's a lot to recap. Because these games are high scoring, I think I'm going to switch to, instead of going 1 game per series, I might go 1 game for every 7 to broadcast on the channel. So look for that instead. I know the next series is against the Atlanta Braves, so hopefully I'll be able to get this done sooner rather than later. All right, everybody, thank you for sticking through this video with me. If you have not already done so, well, first of all, hit the like button. And if you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell icon. You'll be notified of any new videos. And whatever games you are playing, may your games be lively and your games be good. Have a good night, everybody.